D.S. Johnson Mills is a debut author whose novel, Choosing Me, unveils the unapologetically American and flawless imperfect protagonist, Dylan, whose superpower lies in her ability to love unconditionally. And D.S. Johnson Mills is with us here. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
This novel, Choosing Me, delves into complex family dynamics. So what was the inspiration behind these characters and their relationships?
The inspiration basically came from personal experience, like my protagonist, Dylan. I was raised by my grandmother, and when we were children, our mother left. So I have that dynamic throughout the novel. And it's basically between the two sisters, because obviously one of my sisters was left in the hospital. So I kind of used that as my theme. That was very easy to write about. Whenever I wrote about Dylan and her family, the scenes are always done in one sitting, and it's like the words just poured onto the page. So that's where I drew the inspiration from.
And the book explores the themes of sexuality and intimacy. So how do you think those themes contribute to the character's growth and interactions?
Well, I needed something very powerful to draw her out, because she was basically emotionally sad for most of her life, because she had this, it's like a part of her is missing, when your mother leaves and you really don't understand it. So she was struggling emotionally. And so she had all this type of neurotic behavior and these controls where she had to constantly be cleaning, and so I needed something powerful, and obviously she doesn't do drugs, so we had to go for the sexual intimacy. And it was also my way to kind of let the reader know that what was actually going on with these two people wasn't just something sexual, it was a little bit more than that. So that's why the romance is quite steamy, but it's definitely not an erotic novel. I wouldn't know how to write erotic. I was just bringing out the human emotion of when you meet someone and you have that connection.
Yeah.
And because she didn't want, I mean, at the time they were just having a fling type thing. In her mind, she wasn't looking for anything else. So I needed a way to let the reader know that there was more going on here than just two people having sex.
Yes. And the novel addresses the jealousy and rivalry between the sisters as well. So how do you approach portraying these emotions authentically within the context of the story?
I have a sister myself, so
Yeah.
I definitely know about the dynamic between sisters. Dylan and Kizzy, that's the name of the sister. I mean, they're from a broken home, and they kind of grew up seeing their father, because he never really got over the fact that the mother left. He was still in love with her, so they always saw his broken heart. And the thing about Dylan was she wanted to be with her mother, have a relationship, but whenever the mother wanted to come to visit or anything like that, Kizzy would always prevent it. And so it kind of built up like a resentment between the two of them. And no one in the family really talks about it because it's too painful. So until Kizzy and Dylan actually discuss, this thing between them, it's always just going to be festering in the background. So this is where the resentment comes from. But they love each other and they're best friends. They would do anything for each other. But that thing is still there, where Kizzy hates the mom, Dylan loves the mom, even though the mom left, So you kind of have that and obviously the rest of the family really spoilt Kizzy because of the way she was left. And so they somehow didn't treat Dylan like she was left too. You know what I mean? So this is where all the resentment comes from.
And the book explores the concept of choosing oneself. So how does Dylan's journey align with this theme? And what messages do you hope readers will take away from it?
Well, in Dylan's case, she had to make the choice to break away because, like I said, she was emotionally compromised. She was not she was very unhappy, and she couldn't even work out why. So she was struggling. And then when she broke away from her family and went to live on her own, she thrived. But she had her grandmother guiding her. It's not like she made all these steps by herself. You know what I mean? So it's not to say that it's the ideal solution for everybody, because we also meet Toby, who's in my novel.
Yes.
And no two paths are the same. Toby's struggling with his sexuality, and he is afraid to embrace it because he risks hurting his mother, who, basically sacrificed so that he could have the life that he has today. So it's kind of like being free works for Dylan, but it's not the same for everybody. So that's not what I mean. This is Dylan's story and her choice, what she had to do to be able to live. But even when she leaves, it's still there. So it's still, festering on the surface. And then obviously when she meets Marcus and he draws all these emotions out of her, then she's kind of back to square one. So it's what does she actually do to break free, to make herself actually truly happy.
And what is your thought process behind crafting the pacing of the narrative, given those emotional ups and downs that the characters experience?
That's a really good question, because most of the pacing of the narrative was done during the editing and rewriting process. Because, when I first sat down to write, I just wrote. I didn't really think about any of these skills that are so important.
Yeah.
Then after, when I was editing, then I realized, I had to take out things that didn't work. So this is where I had to then learn. I did a couple of courses and I had to learn about creating effective dialogue, how to bring the magic onto the page, especially between the three friends. Because like I say, when I was writing about the family, it was very easy because I had a lot to draw on personally. But like when I first had the idea to write the book, everything was coming from Marcus's point of view. But then I realized I don't know what guys think about. So I can't even have a conversation, as a guy. So I had to change. And that's when Dylan came in. So I had no thought process to write a novel about family and emotional. I was going to write a romance novel. But then when I switched to Dylan's perspective, this is when all this emotion started coming out onto the page. So that for me was a little bit of a surprise. And I mean, I struggled to even craft not just a dialogue, but to build my characters, because my first editor, she basically said to me, Marcus was too nice. And I was racking my brain trying to figure out how to make him bad, without compromising his authenticity. But I really struggled. And then it was my sister who said to me, Marcus will be whoever you say he is. And then after that, I was okay. I was a bit more comfortable. I mean, at the end of the day, we're seeing him through Dylan's eyes. And it's the start of a romance when everything is beautiful, all the ugly stuff comes later. So I became a little bit more comfortable with it. And so that was how I just kind of trusted what I was writing and try not to think too, like overthink it. I just let everything happen. I mean, sometimes I would make a plan and I would say, okay, this is what I'm writing today. And then I write something completely different. That's how it happened for me.
How did you decide on the book's title, Choosing Me? How did you choose that, if you'll pardon the pun?
Well, yeah, that actually, I had so many different titles for the book. And it was really monumental effort trying to decide what was the best fit. But what in the very first scene between Marcus and Dylan, they're having a conversation and there's nothing remarkable about what they're saying to each other. He's giving her a lift home, being his chivalrous self. And in the conversation, she tells him that she always chooses for herself. She makes these plans, and when they don't work out, she just moves on to the next one. At the point of them meeting, she's on plan C. And so that's where I got the idea. And I even wrote like a little poem at the start of the book, just all about choosing me. I mean, it's kind of everything just kind of happened. And like once I had the title, I was like, yeah, this is the right title for the book.
How did you come up with a concept for the cover design as well?
Well, I this is where it all came, where Woodbridge came, my publishers. They obviously came in and they designed the cover for me. So I gave them the concept of what I wanted. And of course, I had to do a bit of compromising on my part, because when someone else, takes over your baby, it's kind of like they have their ideas and then you have yours. So in the end, though, I think the cover works to portray the spirit of the story. Dylan's determination to remain in the light, her ability to love unconditionally. I think all of that is portrayed from this wonderfully attractive woman who's on the cover, and it's just surrounded by strong themes of love and loyalty, and this is what the book is all about. So I think they did a good job.
Absolutely. Were there any challenges that you faced while writing choosing me.
Yes, many challenges, some of which I've already mentioned. But I think the biggest challenge for me was obviously interacting with the men, what they're actually saying, because you have two male characters and a female. And it's like when the male characters talking to each other, what do they say? I have no idea what guys talk about. So that was my biggest struggle. And then obviously I sort of went out of my comfort zone. And all of this happened organically. And I had Toby in the story, and he's a gay man who struggles with being gay. And it was, I mean, this is Marcus and Dylan's love story. So I didn't want to like overshadow it, but there is a scene in the book when Toby reveals to Dylan that he's not okay about being gay, like he struggles with it, obviously because he doesn't want to hurt his mother. And it's kind of like when you first meet Toby, you think, okay, he's this outwardly gay guy because that's how he behaves with Dylan. But it's Dylan who kind of drew out the real Toby, but he's afraid to let anyone else see. So that for me was the biggest challenge because I mean I don't really know really what gay people struggle with or what someone who doesn't want to be gay. I don't know how they struggle. I was making that up. And so I wanted to be true to, but I didn't like my hairdresser's gay and I was like, should I ask him? But he's
Yeah.
happy. So I thought no. So this was my biggest struggle. So I had to really dig deep to try and make it real, like what happened. And to be honest, some real powerful things came out. I was thinking, where did you get that from? So yeah, that was the challenge.
Yeah.
But I did like the contrast between Dylan and Toby, the way that they're both struggling to just be their authentic self.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
And that is something that is a struggle, isn't it? Because it's so important to get that right, isn't it? You could so
Yes,
easily make
that's
mistakes when you're
it.
dealing
I
with
so easily make
sexuality.
mistakes, and I was thinking, yeah, I could but the thing about it is, the thing is, Toby was only just supposed to be there for like a minute. He was supposed to be the reason why Dylan and Marcus would meet because, Dylan and Marcus roll in different circles, and obviously Toby was a humble boy from Greenwich who just happened to win a scholarship to a top school, and that's how he met Marcus. And he was only supposed to be the reason why they met, but then the character just wouldn't leave. And then I had this guy in my book, and one of my editors said, what about Toby? What's happening with him? And I'm thinking, huh? So then I had to write about him, and I did thankfully get to carry on his story, so I kind of know how that turns out, later on. But
Yes.
it was kind of like, can I do this? Can I say this? And my sister helped me a little bit because she works in the medical field, so she was giving me some pointers. So yeah, and I didn't want to research anything on the internet. I wanted it to come from him being authentic. Like this is how he's struggling. Yeah, maybe it doesn't make sense to you, but it's his internal struggle. So yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges that I had. I was really out of my comfort zone with that one.
Because I suppose it's something that, as you mentioned, you don't personally know the struggles.
No.
But on the other hand, were there aspects of the book that did resonate with you?
Yeah, so the story about Dylan and her life before she comes to London, all of that was, like I said, living with her grandmother, being with her father and her sister. All of that was just came out naturally. I even had a friend who I sent my first draft, and she refused to read it. She says, because it's you. It's not me. It definitely isn't me, but because I've experienced it, I was able to draw from that. Whereas with Toby, I didn't have anything to draw on. Even with Marcus, I mean, he's from this upper class, British life. And I don't know anything about that, but we've seen
Yeah.
so many period dramas, we can kind of, make it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Toby, it wasn't that easy. But I hope I did a good job. I really, really do. I really
Yeah.
hope so.
And it's your debut novel, so
Yeah.
how did you find the writing and publishing process overall?
If someone had said to me that I would write a novel, I think I would imagine like 400 blank pages. Seriously, I didn't think that this would be possible. And I don't even think I started out to write a novel. I was just messing around because I always, like, my dad is he's a writer. He used to be like the reigning calypso monarch in Montserrat. So he writes most of the my cousins and my aunts, they're all writers. But I've always written like when we were younger and stuff, but I never thought that I would write a book. But it just happened, I guess 2020 happened and then suddenly everyone had time. So this book is what came out of my time. But the publishing process, now this, even now, I think to myself, my book isn't going to get published. Like, I don't believe it's going to happen because you sit and dream about it, but you don't actually think it will happen. And then when it's actually, you're going through the motions of it happening, there's sometimes I get so excited. I mean, I just cannot control the excitement. I don't think I've ever been this happy. Maybe
Yeah.
when I gave birth to my son,
Yeah.
but it's definitely exciting. I mean, the publishing process, it's really tough for me because I'm like, this is like my baby. Like for me, this is like one of the most important things that I've done. And so I'm so very touchy about it.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that I'm someone who becomes touchy, but maybe others will disagree. But even the smallest thing that goes wrong, like the first thing they said to me was, your novel is too big. It has to be two. And I almost wanted to cry because that meant I had to sit down and write and rewrite it because obviously you just can't say, okay, we're going to stop it here. You still have to create the drama, the intrigue. You got to find the way to keep the readers, engaged. And so I had to do a rewrite. And at first I was stressed about it. But then I realized that when I started writing the novel, and obviously, 2 years later, I think when I sit down to write now, that I'm actually a better writer because I've done so many writing courses and I've done quite a lot of research, so now I feel like I can write a lot better. But yeah, I did some rewrites, and I'm just kind of trusting the publishing team. You kind of, if you have to, I decide you're going to trust them, because if you make yourself a little bit crazy, like, oh, this isn't going to happen or that's not going to happen. I did some submission to agents as well. You do all that stuff, and then when you get the rejections, you just feel like there's a big hole in your life, and then you actually get some publishers who say, yeah, this is really good, and it's kind of like very exciting. But
Yeah.
now it's getting close to the publishing date. I'm very nervous because it's like you're putting yourself out there, and it's
Yeah.
like, you don't know what's going to happen.
That's the thing, isn't it? Are you hoping that it's not going to be one big anticlimax and that people will read the book and you'll get lots of sales and great reviews and all that?
Well, yeah, I want people to read the book. I think that, I mean, I try to go with what one very early editor said to me, because you have your manuscript and you send it out for editors to go through and tell you what works, what doesn't. And this is like the first manuscript when it was massive. And one of the things she said was, romance readers are gonna love your book. And I kept that. I don't think about anything else. I mean, I know maybe I might not have the perfect, punctuations or whatever, but
Yeah.
that is what kept me going, because I thought, okay, it's entertaining, because obviously I write everything that was coming out from inside of me. The story just fell onto the page. So I'm hoping that people will be excited, people will actually fall in love with my characters, or even if they hate them, that's quite cool, as long as there's a reaction. I think that's what I want more than anything. Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what can we expect from you in the future? Do you think that this is maybe set off a new hobby for you and you're maybe going to write another book?
I've written so many manuscripts at the moment. I think I have about five.
Wow.
And this is only the first one. And this was supposed to be the first one, but somehow it got split into two. So that's how much I've written. Like when I was writing, I don't think I've had that much fun. It was so much fun. So I'm hoping, obviously we've got part one and we've got part two to come as well. And so I'm just hoping that people are going to really embrace and enjoy the stories, and they're going to want more, because there's plenty more. Like I said, I carried on Toby's story. So I know what happens there. I know what happens to Dylan and Marcus in the future. It's quite exciting, actually. And
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, at the moment, I spend time just kind of writing and rewriting. Like I write every day. Like I'd get home from work and I would just kind of lose myself in writing. So if people love my novels, as my editor once said to me, then they can rest assured that there will be lots more. I'll never like just be like doing it just one time, because I've got the stories going still, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully I keep going. But yeah, but that's the plan. Like I don't want to stop writing. I want people to enjoy my books. So, yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah. Well, where will we be able to find the book once it's out?
The book will be available on all of the online platforms like Amazon, Waterstones, all of them. It will be available on all of them. I mean, Woodbridge Publishers are going to make the book available on all the platforms. It will be on my website, which is coming soon. So I'm sure someone will go into the shops, but obviously, if that happens, I'll probably faint. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping that my book will be available on all the platforms that you can purchase a book.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for talking to us today. It's been great having you here.
Thank you.